Daewon walked through the massive gates of Station Prime with his hands in his pockets. He had been here 100 times before, maybe more. The station was huge, floating in space like a small metal moon. Ships came and went every minute, carrying people and cargo from 1,000 different worlds. The air smelled like recycled oxygen and alien spices. Voices filled the corridors in languages he didn't understand. He didn't like crowded places, but Station Prime was necessary. His ship, the Morning Calm, needed supplies. He needed food. The colonies on the Outer Rim paid well for deliveries, and Station Prime was the only place to stock up before the long journey into empty space. The security checkpoint appeared ahead. A long line of travelers waited to pass through the scanner. Daewon joined the queue behind a family of blue-skinned aliens. Their children chattered excitedly, pointing at everything. He kept his eyes down and waited. The scanner was new. Last time he visited, they only checked identification cards. Now there was a tall archway made of black metal that pulsed with soft light. Each person walked through and continued without stopping. Simple enough. When his turn came, Daewon stepped forward. The light touched his skin and suddenly everything changed. Alarms screamed. Red lights flashed from every direction. The people behind him gasped and moved away. Metal panels slid down from the ceiling, blocking the exits. 6 security drones dropped from hidden compartments above. Their weapons pointed directly at him. Daewon raised his hands slowly. His heart pounded, but he kept his face calm. "There's a mistake," he said. "Do not move." The voice came from everywhere at once. Heavy footsteps approached. A massive alien pushed through the crowd. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in shiny black armor like an insect's shell. 4 arms hung at its sides. Its head was angular with multiple eyes that glowed orange. "I am Thesol, Chief of Security." The alien's voice buzzed like metal scraping metal. "You will explain the scanner's reading." "I don't know what it says." Daewon kept his hands up. "I'm just a cargo hauler. I come here for supplies." Thesol tapped something on his wrist device. His eyes widened, which was disturbing on an insect face. The scanner has never produced this reading before. He looked at Daewon with what might have been fear or confusion. "It asks if you have faced a god and survived." The crowd murmured. Daewon felt dozens of eyes staring at him. "It's broken," he said. "Scanners break. This one is clearly broken. Architect technology does not break." Thesol moved closer. "This scanner was built by the oldest species in known history. Its readings are absolute." He gestured to the drones. "You will come with us." They took him to a white room deep inside the station. No windows. 1 table, 2 chairs. A camera in the corner watched everything. Daewon sat and waited. Hours passed, maybe more. Time felt strange in rooms without clocks. Finally, the door opened. A young woman entered carrying a data pad. She was human, which surprised him. Not many humans worked this far from Earth. She had short black hair and intelligent eyes that studied him carefully. "My name is Haye Jin," she said, sitting across from him. "I'm a xenoarchaeologist. I study ancient civilizations, especially the architects." "I don't know anything about ancient civilizations," Daewon replied. "But you know about the scanner's question?" Haye Jin placed her datapad on the table. "The architects created a classification system for threats. Most dangerous creatures in the galaxy rank at Tier 5. Weapons that can destroy planets are Tier 4. Black holes and supernovas are Tier 3. She paused. Tier 0 is reserved for entities they call divine, gods, demons, or beings so powerful that reality bends around them. In 10,000 years of galactic records, no living creature has ever encountered a Tier 0 entity. "Until the scanner scanned me," Daewon said quietly. "Until today." Haye Jin leaned forward. "The scanner detected patterns in your body. Scars that don't match any known weapon or injury. Your cells contain elements that shouldn't exist in normal space. Whatever hurt you changed you on a fundamental level." Daewon looked at his hands. They looked normal to him. A few calluses from shipwork, some old cuts that had healed poorly. Nothing special. Maybe I'm just unlucky. "The architects built that scanner to warn people," Haye Jin continued. "To identify threats before they destroy entire civilizations. It's asking if you met a god because it needs to know if gods are active again. If they are, every species in the galaxy is in danger. I'm not a danger to anyone. I believe you." Haye Jin's voice softened. "But I need to understand what happened. The scars are real. The scanner doesn't lie. Something changed you, and it was powerful enough to register on technology designed by beings who witnessed the birth of stars." Daewon was silent for a long time. Outside the room, he could hear the station's hum. Millions of lives going about their business, unaware that gods might be real. He envied them. Can I refuse to answer? He asked. Station security will keep you here until you talk. They're scared. Fear makes people do cruel things, even good people like Thessal. Yejin pulled up an image on her datapad. But if you talk to me, I can help. I can make them understand you're not a threat. I just need the truth. He studied her face. She seemed honest. Young, maybe late 20s, but her eyes held the kind of intelligence that sees through lies. He was tired of lying anyway. Tired of pretending the scars didn't exist. Tired of running from memories that followed him across empty space. 5 years ago, he began, I wasn't a cargo hauler. I worked on an exploration ship called the Horizon's Edge. We investigated places where colonies disappeared without sending distress signals. Heejin activated her recording device. Go on. We found something. Daewon's voice grew distant. In a dead system called Ochun 15, a structure floating in space between the planets. It wasn't built. It was something else. Something wrong. Wrong how? It existed in ways things shouldn't exist. He struggled to find words. Looking at it hurt. Not your eyes. Something deeper. Like it was pressed into reality from somewhere else, and reality was trying to reject it but couldn't. Heejin's hands trembled slightly as she took notes. What happened when you approached it? We heard things. Felt things. Thoughts that weren't ours appeared in our heads. We saw civilizations rising and falling like waves. We felt something watching us, something so big that we were less than dust to it. And you went inside, Heejin whispered. Daewon met her eyes. All 5 of us went inside the structure, my crew. My friends. His voice cracked slightly. Only I came back out. The room fell silent except for the station's distant hum. Heejin stared at him with a mixture of horror and fascination. She opened her mouth to ask another question, but Daewon raised his hand. That's all I'm saying today, he said. I've told you more than I've told anyone in 5 years. If you want the rest, you'll have to give me time. Heejin nodded slowly. I'll talk to Thessal. Make arrangements for better quarters. But Daewon, you need to tell the whole story eventually. If there's something out there that kills exploration crews, people need to know. Some things aren't meant to be known, he replied. Some things break people just by being understood. She left him alone in the White Room. Daewon put his head in his hands and tried not to remember, tried not to see his crew's faces, tried not to hear their voices as they discovered truths that shouldn't be discovered. Above the station, stars burned in the infinite dark, and somewhere in that darkness, things older than stars remembered the human who refused to learn their secrets. They remembered, and they were curious about what made him different. The scars on his body began to itch. They moved Daewon to better quarters after 3 days. The new room had a real bed, a small window showing the stars, and a bathroom that didn't smell like chemicals. Heejin visited him every morning with breakfast and questions. He answered some, others he couldn't. On the 5th day, she brought a Vrick scientist named Ilmoth. He was smaller than Thessal, with green armor instead of black. His multiple eyes studied Daewon like he was a puzzle to solve. I need to examine your scars, Ilmoth said without greeting. His voice buzzed softer than Thessal's. The station requires data. Understanding, you agree, yes? Daewon looked at Heejin. She nodded encouragingly. It won't hurt. We just need to understand what we're dealing with. The examination took hours. Ilmoth used devices that hummed and beeped. Light scanned Daewon's skin from every angle. The scientist took samples of his blood, his hair, even the air he breathed out. Through it all, Ilmoth muttered in his own language, his tone shifting between excited and disturbed. Impossible, Ilmoth finally announced. He displayed images on a screen. Your cells contain elements not found on periodic table, structures that exist in more than 3 dimensions. Your DNA has been rewritten with patterns that resemble mathematics, not biology. What does that mean? Daewon asked. It means something changed you at the most basic level. Ilmoth zoomed in on one image. These scars go deeper than tissue. They go into the fabric of what you are. Whatever touched you left marks in reality itself. Heejin leaned closer to the screen. Can you identify what caused it? No known weapon, natural phenomenon, or artificial device produces this signature. Ilmoth's eyes all focused on Daewon simultaneously. Only one explanation fits. You encountered something beyond conventional physics. The scanner's classification appears correct. You faced a Tier 0 entity. The room felt colder suddenly. Daewon pulled his shirt back on, covering the faint marks on his chest and arms. To him, they just looked like old burns, but apparently they were proof of something impossible. Tell us about your crew, Yejin said gently. Tell us about the horizon's edge. Daewon walked to the window. Stars stretched forever in every direction, so much empty space between so few lights. There were 5 of us, he began. Young-sik was our leader. He'd been exploring for 20 years. Smart, brave, always optimistic even when things went wrong. Go on, Heejin encouraged. Taemin flew the ship, best pilot I ever met. He could navigate asteroid fields blind. Cocky about it too, but he earned the right to be cocky. Daewon smiled slightly at the memory. Bora was our engineer. Give her a broken engine and spare parts, she'd build you something better than the original. And the 5th? Ilmoth asked. Jiwon. Our medic. Daewon's smile faded. She kept everyone healthy. Kept our spirits up when missions went long. Always knew the right thing to say when someone felt homesick or scared. You were close, Heejin observed. We were family. Daewon turned from the window. 3 years together in that ship. You get close when you're isolated for months at a time. You learn who people really are when there's nowhere to hide. Heejin pulled up star charts on her datapad. Ocheon 15, the system where you found the structure. What were you investigating there? Colony disappearances. Daewon sat on the bed. 30,000 people lived in Ocheon 15. Mining operations on 3 different moons. One day, all communication stopped. No distress signals. No emergency beacons. Just silence. And you were sent to investigate, Ilmoth said. We found the colony intact. Buildings standing. Equipment still running. Food half-eaten in cafeterias. But no people. Not a single body. Not even animals. Everything with a nervous system was gone. Heejin's face paled. All 30,000? Vanished. Daewon's hands clenched into fists. We spent 2 weeks searching. Checked every building, every tunnel, every ship in orbit. Found nothing. Young-sik wanted to leave, file a report, let others investigate. But then our sensors detected something. The structure, Yejin whispered. Daewon nodded. It appeared between the 4th and 5th planets. Just appeared. 1 second, nothing was there. The next second, something impossible filled our screens. Describe it. Ilmoth leaned forward intently. I can't. Not properly. Daewon struggled to find words. Imagine trying to describe color to someone born blind. The structure existed, but it didn't follow rules. Sometimes it looked like a building. Sometimes like a ship. Sometimes like nothing at all, just empty space that felt wrong. How large was it? Heejin asked. Size didn't apply. Looking at it from one angle, it seemed small enough to touch. From another angle, it stretched larger than moons. Perspective didn't work normally around it. Ilmoth made rapid notes. Spatial distortion. Reality warping. Consistent with Tier 0 classification. Our ship's AI tried to analyze it, Daewon continued. The AI broke. Started giving contradictory readings. Said the structure was made of metal. Then said it was made of light, then said it was made of nothing. Eventually, the AI just stopped responding to questions about it. But you approached it anyway, Heejin said. Young-sik gave orders to maintain distance, run every scan possible from safe range. But then the signals started. Daewon's voice dropped. Thoughts pressed into our minds. Not words, just understanding. We suddenly knew things we shouldn't know. Saw images of civilizations we'd never heard of, living and dying in seconds. Felt the weight of billions of years pressing down on us. All of you experienced this? Ilmoth asked. All of us. We tried to leave, but the ship wouldn't respond. The structure had our attention and wouldn't let go. For 3 days we orbited while it showed us things. The birth of galaxies. The death of stars. Species rising from oceans and reaching space. Only to destroy themselves over and over in countless variations. Hyejin set down her datapad. Her hands shook. What did it want? We didn't know. Couldn't understand. The images kept coming. Bora started crying. Taemin stopped eating. Jiwon tried to sedate everyone, but the medications didn't work. And Young-sik just stared at the screens, watching the images like he was hypnotized. When did you decide to go inside? Hyejin asked. We didn't decide. Not really. Daewon closed his eyes. On the 4th day, a door appeared. An opening in the structure's surface. And we felt it inviting us. Not in words. Just a pull. A curiosity that wanted to be satisfied. Young-sik gave the order? Ilmoth asked. No, he argued against it. Said we should destroy the ship rather than enter that thing. But the rest of us wanted to go. We had to know. The curiosity burned so strong it hurt. We took a shuttle and flew into the opening. All 5 of you, Yejin confirmed. All 5 of us entered the structure. Daewon opened his eyes. They were wet. Inside, physics stopped working. Time flowed in multiple directions. We saw ourselves as children, saw ourselves as old people dying in beds, saw versions of ourselves that made different choices and lived different lives. How is that possible? Ilmoth demanded. It's not, but it happened anyway. Daewon stood and paced the small room. We walked through corridors that led nowhere and everywhere, saw rooms that contained entire planets, touched walls that felt solid and liquid and gaseous all at once. And then you met it, Hyejin said softly. The entity. The god. Daewon stopped pacing. His whole body tensed. We didn't meet it. Meeting implies two separate things coming together. We became aware of it, like suddenly realizing you've been breathing your whole life, or that your heart has been beating. It was always there. We just finally noticed. What did it look like? Ilmoth asked. Everything. Nothing. It existed between thoughts, in the spaces between moments. Sometimes we glimpsed shapes, forms that almost made sense before sliding away into something else. But mostly we just felt it. Felt its attention focusing on us like the sun focusing through glass burning without heat. Hyejin wiped her eyes. What happened to your crew? Daewon sat back down heavily. The entity was curious. It wanted to understand what made humans persist against cosmic indifference. So it offered us a choice. Receive knowledge of the universe's true nature or remain ignorant. And they chose knowledge, Hyejin whispered. Young Sik chose first. Then Taemin. Bora hesitated but agreed. Ji-won looked at me and chose knowledge because she thought we'd face it together. Daewon's voice cracked. Only I refused. The room fell silent. Outside the station hummed with life. Millions of beings going about their day, unaware that gods existed and knowledge could kill. Why did you refuse? Hyejin finally asked. Because I saw what knowledge did to others. Daewon met her eyes. In the entity's memories, I glimpsed species that learned the truth. They all ended themselves, peacefully, rationally, because continuing seemed pointless once they understood that entropy wins, that consciousness is an accident, that meaning doesn't exist except where we pretend it does. Ilmoth's eyes widened. Your crew learned this truth. They understood. Daewon's tears fell freely now. One by one, they just stopped. Not dead, unwilling to continue existing. The entity hadn't meant to break them. It gave me these scars as an apology, as a mark so other cosmic beings would know to leave me alone. And you came back alone, Hyejin said. I came back alone. Hyejin requested permission to access deeper memories. Daewon agreed, though he didn't fully understand what it meant. They took him to a restricted research wing in the lowest levels of Station Prime. The walls here were different, made of dark material that seemed to absorb light. Few people walk these corridors. This technology comes from Architect Ruins, Hyejin explained as they entered a circular chamber. It can access suppressed memories, things your mind buried to protect itself. Will it hurt? Daewon asked. Not physically. Ilmoth adjusted controls on a curved panel. Mentally, perhaps. Remembering trauma causes pain. But the pain already exists. We merely bring it to surface. Daewon sat in a chair at the chamber's center. Ilmoth attached small devices to his temples. They felt cold against his skin. Hyejin stood nearby with her datapad, ready to record everything. Think about the structure, Ilmoth instructed. Think about what you saw inside. Let the memories come. Daewon closed his eyes. At first, nothing happened. Then the memories rushed in like water through a broken dam. He was back on the shuttle with his crew. Young Sik piloted while the others crowded the windows, staring at the structure. Up close, it hurt to look at. The shape kept changing. One moment it resembled ancient temples. The next it looked like organic matter. Then pure geometry. Then nothing comprehensible. We shouldn't do this, Young Sik said. But his hands guided the shuttle forward anyway. The pull was too strong. They had to know. The opening swallowed them. Inside was impossible. The shuttle floated in a space that seemed infinite and tiny simultaneously. They could see the walls but couldn't judge distance. Everything felt close and far away at the same time. They left the shuttle wearing spacesuits. The structure had atmosphere, but they didn't trust it. Bora's readings showed air that was oxygen one moment, nitrogen the next, then elements that didn't exist. Stay together, Young Sik ordered. His voice shook. They walked through corridors that twisted in directions humans couldn't normally perceive. Left and right meant nothing. Up and down were suggestions. Taemin tried to map their route, but his device kept resetting. They were everywhere and nowhere. In one room they found a planet. An entire planet, spinning slowly in the center of a space the size of a closet. They could see cities on its surface. Watch clouds move across oceans. Bora touched it with one finger and felt warmth, felt life, felt millions of minds thinking thoughts. This is impossible, Jiwan whispered. Everything here is impossible, Daewon replied. They continued deeper, saw more impossibilities. A corridor containing all of human history displayed on walls like paintings. A room where time ran backwards and they watched themselves entering before they arrived. A space filled with stars that sang songs in frequencies that made their bones ache. And then they felt it notice them. The presence arrived like weight, like gravity suddenly increasing 1,000 times. They fell to their knees, not from force but from the sheer understanding that something vast had turned its attention toward them. It didn't have a body, didn't have a form, but they perceived it anyway. Sometimes as light, sometimes as darkness, sometimes as colors that didn't exist in normal space. It shifted constantly, too complex for their minds to hold steady. Words appeared directly in their thoughts. Not sounds. Pure meaning. Why do you persist? The question made no sense at first. Young-sik tried to speak but couldn't form words. The presence waited patiently, eternal and curious. Finally, Jiwan managed to think a response. We don't understand the question. You are temporary. Brief sparks in infinite void. You comprehend your own mortality, yet you continue. Why? Bora thought. Because we're alive. That's reason enough, is it? The presence showed them images. Species across the universe, each discovering they were temporary, each choosing to continue anyway, but also species that learned deeper truths and chose to stop. Consciousness is accident. Meaning is illusion. Entropy claims all. Why persist against this certainty? Because we don't have a choice, Taemin thought. We're built to survive. It's in our nature. Incorrect. Choice exists. I offer it now. The presence split into paths. They could see both options clearly. One path led to understanding, complete knowledge of how the universe worked, why it existed, what came before and what came after. All questions answered, all mysteries solved. The other path led to ignorance, continuing without answers, living with uncertainty and doubt. Choose, the presence thought at them. Young-sik looked at his crew. Daewon could see the hunger in his eyes, the need to know. 20 years exploring space, and here was a chance to understand everything. I choose knowledge, Young-sik thought. The presence touched him. Daewon watched his friend's face change. First came wonder, then horror, then nothing. Young-sik stood perfectly still, his expression empty. His body breathed, but something essential had left. Young-sik? Jiwan called out. He didn't respond. Taemin gripped Young-sik's shoulder. What did you do to him? Granted his request. He understands now. I want to understand too, Taemin thought. Before anyone could stop him, he chose knowledge. The presence touched him. Same sequence. Wonder, horror, emptiness. Taemin's body remained, but the person inside was gone. Stop! Bora screamed. But she was crying. I need to know. I have to know what they learned. Don't, Daewon grabbed her arm. Please don't. I'm sorry. Bora chose knowledge. The presence touched her gently, almost lovingly. She joined the others in empty understanding. Only Jiwan and Daewon remained. They held hands, their suits touching in the impossible space. Jiwan's eyes were wet behind her helmet glass. We should stay together, she thought. Whatever we choose together. Then choose ignorance with me, Daewon begged. I can't, don't you see? They learned something so profound it changed them completely. I need to understand what they understand. I need to know what they know. She squeezed his hand. Choose with me. We'll face it together. No. Daewon pulled away. I refuse. The presence focused on him. Why? Because I saw what knowledge did. In your memories, in the images you showed us, every species that learned the complete truth stopped existing. They understood that nothing matters, and so they chose nothing. Truth is truth. Understanding is gift. Not if it destroys the understander. Daewon looked at his crew, standing empty like broken machines. We're not meant to know everything. Some ignorance is necessary. Some mysteries should stay mysteries. You fear truth. I fear what truth does. There's a difference. Jiwan stepped forward. I'm not afraid. I choose knowledge. Jiwan, please. But the presence touched her. Wonder, horror, emptiness. She joined the others, standing still as statues, breathing bodies with absent minds. Daewon stood alone, surrounded by his crew's shells. Tears froze on his cheeks inside his helmet. Why, he asked. Why offer a choice that destroys people? Not destruction, understanding. They perceive universe as it truly is. They comprehend that existence is temporary accident. That meaning is fiction. That purpose is delusion. They achieve perfect clarity. And that clarity killed them. No, they live. They simply choose not to continue choosing. Having seen everything, they require nothing. Daewon wanted to scream, wanted to attack the presence. But how do you fight something that exists between thoughts? Send me back, he demanded. Send me back to my ship with them. They will not leave. They are content here, free from need and desire. Then send me back alone. The presence paused. Daewon felt something like surprise from it. You persist even now. Even knowing your species will end, your works will crumble, your memories will fade into entropy. You persist, yes, why? Because the alternative is joining them. Daewon gestured at his crew. Because giving up means they died for nothing. Because maybe meaning is fiction, but we're the ones writing the fiction and that has to count for something. Another pause. Longer. You are interesting. Illogical, but interesting. Will you let me go? Yes, but others like me exist. They may find you. May offer same choice. They may not be gentle. The presence moved closer. I will mark you. A sign that you have been offered and refused. A warning to others to leave you be. Pain exploded through Daewon's body. Not physical pain. Something deeper. Reality itself burned marks into his cells. His DNA, the fundamental structure of what he was. He screamed silently as the scars formed. This is mercy, the presence said, and apology. I did not intend to break your companions. I merely answered their request. Some requests shouldn't be granted, Daewon gasped. Perhaps. Go now, persist in your meaningful meaninglessness. I find it aesthetically pleasing. Daewon found himself back in the shuttle, alone. The structure was gone. His crew was gone. Only the scars remained, burning beneath his skin. In the research chamber, Daewon screamed. His body convulsed in the chair. Hyjin ran forward, but Ilmoth stopped her. Memory ending. He returns to present. Daewon's eyes opened. Tears streamed down his face. They're still there, he whispered. My crew standing in that structure. Forever understanding. Forever empty. Hyjin held his hand. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be careful. Daewon looked at her with haunted eyes. Don't seek the truth. Some things shouldn't be learned. Outside the chamber, alarms began to wail. The alarm screamed through every corridor of Station Prime. Daewon stumbled out of the chair, still shaking from the memory playback. Hyjin checked her datapad and her face went pale. What's happening? Daewon asked. Spatial anomalies. Hundreds of them. She pulled up a display. Red warnings covered the screen. All around the station. Ships are detecting reality distortions throughout the sector. Ilmoth's eyes widened in fear. Impossible. Multiple anomalies appearing simultaneously, never recorded in galactic history. Thessal's voice crackled through the speakers. All personnel to emergency stations. Evacuate civilians to core sections. This is not a drill. They ran through corridors filled with panicking crowds. Aliens of every species pushed toward shelter. Parents carried children. Old beings moved as fast as their bodies allowed. Security drones flew overhead trying to maintain order. In the command center, chaos reigned. Dozens of technicians worked at stations, while holographic displays showed the station surrounded by tiers in space. Thesal stood at the center, barking orders in 3 languages. Report, he demanded when they arrived. A technician, a small gray alien with 4 arms, typed frantically. Spatial anomalies increasing. Now detecting reality warping. Technology is failing randomly. Communications cutting in and out. Can we evacuate? Hyjin asked. Negative. The anomalies block transit lanes. Ships cannot navigate through probability fields. Thesal turned to Daewon. This began when you accessed your memories. When you remembered the structure. They're here, Daewon said quietly. Entities like the one I met. They detected the scar's signature when the memory device activated them. They're curious. Curious about what? Thesal demanded. About me. About the human who refused knowledge and survived. A massive shudder ran through the station. Lights flickered. Several displays went dark. When they came back on, some showed impossible readings. Gravity measuring in negative numbers. Time flowing backwards. Space folding in on itself. 3 million beings on this station, Thesal said. We cannot protect them from gods. They don't want to hurt anyone, Daewon explained. They don't even notice most of you. To them, you're like bacteria. They're here because I'm interesting. They want to understand what makes me different. Another shudder. This time, reality visibly bent near one wall. The metal twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. A technician standing too close screamed and collapsed, clutching his head. Medical team to command center, Thesal called. Through the windows, they could see it happening outside too. Ships in dock twisted like toys. Some disappeared entirely. Others appeared where nothing had been seconds before. The stars themselves seemed to move in wrong directions. How do we stop this? Heejin asked desperately. We can't stop gods, Ilmoth said. No species has that power. But we can talk to them. Daewon moved to the window. They're not malicious, just unaware of the damage they cause. Like a human walking through grass doesn't think about crushing insects. You want to communicate with them? Thesal's voice buzzed with disbelief. It's the only chance. If I can make them notice the harm they're causing, maybe they'll leave. And if they don't, then we all die. But we're dying anyway if I do nothing. Hyejin grabbed his arm. You can't go out there alone. I have to. This is about me, about my scars, about what I refused to learn. Then I'm coming with you. Hyejin's voice was firm. I study the architects. I understand cosmic scale phenomena better than anyone on this station. You need me. Thesal stepped forward. My species values honor debts. You are detained here because of our security. If you die solving our problem, I am honor-bound to assist. Ilmoth's eyes rotated toward them. I am scientist. Curiosity overrides self-preservation. I must witness this. Daewon looked at them, 3 beings willing to face gods for him. For the station. Maybe humanity wasn't the only species that persisted against cosmic indifference. All right, he said. We go together. They took a small shuttle from the emergency bay. As soon as they cleared the docking port, reality became suggestions. The shuttle existed in multiple locations simultaneously. They could see themselves from outside and inside at the same time. Stars moved in spiral patterns. Space folded like paper. I'm going to be sick, Hyejin groaned. Focus on breathing, Daewon advised. Don't try to understand what you're seeing. Your mind will break if you do. Thesal piloted toward the largest concentration of anomalies. His forearms worked the controls with practiced precision, but even he struggled with physics that kept changing. They saw others caught in the distortions. A cargo ship aged 1,000 years in seconds, crumbling to dust. Another ship appeared brand new, as if time ran backwards. A space station appeared that wasn't there before, filled with aliens who looked confused and terrified. People are experiencing memories that aren't theirs, Ilmoth reported, checking his instruments. Reality bleeding between timelines. Some see futures that haven't happened. Others see pasts that never existed. We need to get their attention, Daewon said. The entities. They're so vast they don't notice us unless we make them notice. How? Hyejin asked. Daewon closed his eyes and focused on the scars. They burned beneath his skin, marks left by something beyond comprehension. He reached out with his mind the way he'd learned in the structure. Not words. Pure meaning. You're killing them without noticing. Please notice. For a moment, nothing changed. Then the shuttle stopped spinning. Reality stabilized around them. They floated in a pocket of normal space while chaos continued outside. Something focused on them. It didn't have a form, couldn't have a form, but they perceived it anyway. A presence so vast that planets were dust motes in its attention. Stars were candles. Galaxies were patterns it found mildly interesting. The marked one, meaning, flowed into their minds. You persist still. Daewon tried to speak, but his voice didn't work. He thought instead, you're destroying millions. Please look at what your presence does. Millions. The entity considered. Elaborate. We perceive you. Others are peripheral. They're alive. Like me, they think, feel, fear, hope. Your presence breaks reality and they suffer. Another entity's attention joined the first. Then another. Daewon felt the weight of multiple godlike beings examining him like scientists studying an interesting specimen. This one refused knowledge, a second presence observed, chose ignorance over understanding. Fascinating, added a third. Why? The shuttle began to change. Its walls became transparent, then invisible, then they weren't in a shuttle at all but floating in space without suits, breathing vacuum as if it were air. Hyejin grabbed Daewon's hand. Thesal's armor vibrated with stress. Ilmoth's eyes spun in different directions trying to process impossible sights. We persist because we choose to. Daewon thought at them. We know we're small. Know we're temporary, but we persist anyway. Isn't that worth noticing? Worth? The entities seemed confused. Elaborate this concept. You're so big that you don't see us. Like we don't see individual bacteria, but we matter. Our lives are brief, but they're ours. We love, create, struggle, build meaning where none exists. That has worth. But meaning is fiction, an entity observed. Purpose is delusion. Why create what does not exist? Heejin spoke up, her voice shaking. Because the fiction makes existence bearable. Because purpose gives us direction. Because meaning lets us persist against the knowledge that entropy wins. Thesal added his voice. My species values honor above survival. Honor has no physical form, cannot be measured. Yet it defines us. Some things matter because we decide they matter. Ilmuth spoke last. Consciousness is universe observing itself. By existing and thinking, we participate in something larger. Snuffing us carelessly is waste. Even gods should consider waste. The entities fell silent. Around them, the anomalies continued. Ships twisted. Space folded. People screamed in terror as reality broke down. You're still killing them, Day One said. While you think about worth and meaning, millions die. If you truly want to understand us, understand this. We protect each other. We sacrifice for strangers. We persist together. Together. An entity rolled the concept around. Collective persistence against entropy. Yes, we find this. The entity paused, searching for words in a language inadequate for cosmic thought. Aesthetically pleasing, like brief song in void silence. Then stop the killing, Heejin begged. Please just leave. Let us persist, another long pause. Daewon felt the entities consulting each other in ways human minds couldn't follow. Around them, the anomalies began to slow. Space stopped folding so violently. Time stabilized, we withdraw, the entities decided. Your persistence has merit. We will observe from distance rather than proximity. Wait, Daewon called.
Why did you come at all?
You are marked. We were curious about human who refused ultimate knowledge. Now we understand. Ignorance preserves will to persist. Knowledge destroys motivation. You chose wisely. My crew chose unwisely, Daewon said bitterly. They chose honestly. Both choices have validity. The entity closest to him shifted. Your scars marked you as survivor of divine encounter. We change marks now. You are witnessed and valued. Other entities will recognize this. We'll consider carefully before accidentally destroying human spaces. Pain flared in Daewon's scars again, but this time it felt different. Not. The station celebrated for 3 days. Daewon avoided the celebrations. He stayed in his quarters, staring out at stars that looked normal again. The scars no longer burned, but he felt them constantly, reminding him of what he'd lost and what he'd become. Heejin visited on the 4th day. She brought food he didn't eat and sat in silence for a while. They want to study you, she finally said. Scientists from a dozen species. They want to understand the marks, understand how you communicated with the entities. Tell them no, Daewon replied. I did. But Daewon, you're famous now. The human who spoke to gods. They're calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who refused to learn what he shouldn't know. He turned from the window. How many people went insane from what they saw? 43, Heejin said quietly. Exposure to the entities broke their minds. They're getting treatment. Ilmuth says most will recover eventually, and the ones who won't. She didn't answer. Thesal arrived later with official documents. Station Prime owes you life debt, he announced. You are granted citizenship, permanent docking rights, and access to all facilities. You never pay for supplies or repairs again. I just want to leave, Daewon said. Understood. But first, Council wishes to speak with you. Brief meeting only. They respect your desire for privacy. The Council met in a circular chamber with representatives from major species. They thanked Daewon formally, offered rewards he didn't want, and asked questions he couldn't answer. Finally, an old alien with silver skin and wise eyes asked the question that mattered. What should we do if entities return? Daewon thought carefully. Don't seek them. Don't investigate their structures. If you find something that breaks physics, leave it alone. Curiosity killed my crew. Let it be a lesson for everyone. But knowledge advances civilization, another council member argued. Some knowledge destroys civilizations, Daewon countered. The entities exist beyond our understanding. Meeting them is dangerous. They don't mean harm, but they're too vast to notice us properly. We're lucky they listened this time. The council debated for hours. Eventually, they agreed to establish warning protocols. Any discovery matching the entity's signatures would be quarantined immediately. No one would approach without council approval. It wasn't enough to prevent all encounters, but it might save some lives. Ilmuth found Daewon in the station's observation deck. Stars stretched forever beyond the transparent walls. I completed analysis of your new marks, the scientist said. Remarkable. The entities rewrote your cellular structure with information, not language. Pure mathematical proofs that encode your protected status. Will it hurt anyone? Daewon asked. No, but it does something unexpected. The marks emit low-level signals. Any entity sensitive to cosmic frequencies will detect you. They will know you are recognized and valued. They will consider their actions more carefully around you. So I'm a warning beacon. More like ambassador. Bridge between human scale and cosmic scale. Illimoth's eyes focused on him intently. What will you do now? Go back to cargo hauling. Deliver supplies to colonies. Live quietly. That seems waste of unique position. Maybe, but I'm tired of being special. I just want to be normal again. Ilmoth considered this. Normal died when you entered that structure. You cannot return to what you were, but you can choose what you become. Heejin found him preparing the morning calm for departure. She helped load supplies in comfortable silence. When the ship was ready, she stood at the airlock. I published my findings about the encounter, she said. Removed your name at your request. But people will figure it out eventually. Let them. I'll be far away by then. Where will you go? Outer Rim colonies. Places where people need supplies and don't ask questions. He paused. What about you? I'm staying on Station Prime. There's so much to study. So much to learn about the architects and their warnings. Someone needs to understand these things so we can be prepared. Be careful. Knowledge destroyed my crew, I know. But ignorance can be dangerous too. We need balance. People brave enough to learn but wise enough to know when to stop. She smiled sadly. You were wise. They were brave. Maybe I can be both. They hugged at the airlock. Brief but genuine. Two people who'd faced gods together and survived. The morning calm left Station Prime quietly. No celebration. No ceremony. Just a small cargo ship heading toward empty space. Daewon sat in the pilot's seat and felt tension drain from his shoulders. Space was vast and lonely, but it was honest. The stars didn't pretend to care. They just burned. 3 weeks later, he arrived at a colony called New Meadow. 2,000 people farming an empty world, trying to build something meaningful in the cosmic void. They needed seeds, equipment, medicine, normal cargo, normal delivery. The colony administrator, a tired woman named Eunji, met him at the landing pad. You're the cargo hauler? Daewon? That's me. She studied his face. You look familiar. Were you on the news recently? Must be thinking of someone else. Maybe. She didn't press. We appreciate the delivery. Routes this far out are dangerous. Most haulers won't come. I don't mind danger. Quiet out here. I like quiet. They unloaded cargo together. Eunji talked about the colony's struggles. Equipment breaking down. Children getting sick. Supplies running low. But she smiled when she talked about the first harvest. About families building homes, about schools teaching the next generation. Why do you do it? Daewon asked. Build a colony on an empty world. You'll struggle for decades before it becomes comfortable. Because comfort isn't the point. Eunji looked at the half-built settlement. We're creating something, making meaning where none existed. Our children will have better lives than we did. Their children will have even better. That's worth the struggle. Daewon thought about the entity's question. Why persist? Here was an answer. Not the only answer, but a good one. Creating meaning through effort. Building futures for people not yet born. Choosing to matter even when the universe didn't care. You're right, he said. That is worth it. He stayed 2 days helping with repairs. Fixed a water pump. Taught someone how to maintain cargo equipment. Played with children who'd never seen anyone from outside their colony. Simple work. Meaningful work. On the 3rd day, he prepared to leave. Eunji brought payment, but Daewon refused most of it. You need it more than me. Station Prime gave me permanent free docking. I've got enough. At least stay for dinner. We're having a celebration. First anniversary of colony founding. He almost refused, but something made him agree. That evening, 2,000 colonists gathered in the main square. They decorated with lights and banners. Music played from speakers. Children ran between adults' legs. People laughed and danced and celebrated their persistence against cosmic indifference. Daewon sat at the edge, watching. An old man sat beside him. Not one for parties? The old man asked. Not usually. Me neither. But sometimes it's good to remember why we persist. The old man gestured at the celebration. Look at them. Every person here chose to leave comfortable lives on established worlds. Chose to struggle on an empty planet. Why? Because they wanted to build something. Create meaning. That's what makes us human. We're good at creating meaning, Daewon agreed, even when we know it's temporary, even knowing entropy wins eventually. We build anyway. Love anyway. Persist anyway, the old man smiled. Some might call that foolish. I call it beautiful. Daewon thought about his crew. They'd sought ultimate knowledge and lost the will to persist. They'd learned the universe was meaningless, and so they stopped creating meaning. But these colonists knew life was hard. Knew they might fail, knew everything they built would eventually crumble. They built anyway. It is beautiful, Daewon said quietly. That night, alone in the morning calm, he opened a small box he'd carried for 5 years. Inside were photos of his crew. Young Sik with his optimistic smile, Taemin leaning against the ship looking cocky, Bora covered in grease from engine repairs, Ji-won laughing at something off camera. You were right to seek knowledge, he told the photos, and I was right to refuse it. Both choices mattered because we made them. That's the point, isn't it? He felt the scars beneath his skin. They no longer burned. They'd become part of him, proof that he'd faced gods and chosen ignorance. Chosen persistence. Chosen to create meaning in a meaningless universe. The morning calm lifted off at dawn. Daewon set course for another colony. Another delivery, another group of humans stubbornly building futures in the void. His routes would take him near areas where cosmic entities might dwell. His marks would warn them to be careful. He'd become an unintentional guardian, protecting human spaces just by existing near them. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was meaningful, and meaning mattered even if only because he chose to make it matter. 6 months later, Hyejin contacted him. She'd discovered something in the architect databases, a reference to humans from thousands of years ago. The architects had studied humanity and concluded they were unique among species. They called us the persistent ones. Hyejin explained through the video call. Not because we're strong or smart, but because we persist despite understanding our own mortality. We create meaning knowing it's temporary. The architects found that fascinating. They said if any species could survive encounters with entities, it would be humans. My crew didn't survive.